cannot believe this. Okay, I cannot believe this.
It was horrible. It was the most horrible feeling, because when you're in a room and they tell you can't leave and it's somebody shooting, you just don't know. And your life just started flashing, in front of your eyes.
He produced a gun, handgun, and fired multiple shots, killing his ex-wife.
Police say the suspect is considered armed and dangerous, so if you spot him, do not approach him and instead call 911.
In this case, it's alleged that the defendant entered a hospital full of workers, civilians, and people being treated for medical issues, and in that hospital sought out his ex-wife at her office and fired a shot, killing her. Your Honor, this is a horrific charge. It's first-degree premeditated murder. He is facing potential life in prison. Based on the nature of the charges, the potential threat to the safety, and the fact that he ran, he hid, he had to be searched out by police over the course of several days with the assistance of several law enforcement agencies. I think he's an unreasonable risk of safety to the community and poses a flight risk. The people are requesting remand. Your Honor, if the court is not inclined to remand the defendant, we would request $1 million cash bond with GPS tether house.
Particularly the details of the allegations are just horrendous. Court does find Mr. Green poses a danger to the community as well as the seriousness of the offense. Court will remand Mr. Green to the custody of Wayne County Sheriff's pending further hearings in this matter.
What does it take for a cry for help to be heard? How many times does a person have to say, "I am scared," before someone in a position of power actually listens? On August 22nd, 2025, 40-year-old Latricia Green went to her job at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit, a place she'd worked for 20 years. She showed up, just like she always did. But by 9:55 that morning, she was dead. Shot and killed by the man she'd spent months begging the courts to protect her from. Here's the thing that stops you in your tracks. She did everything the system told her to do. She filed the reports. She got the protection order. She told her bosses. She followed the rules. And the system, every step of the way, left a door unlocked. This isn't just a story about a crime of passion. This is a story about a promise of protection that turned out to be just paper. A story that asks a brutal question: what good is a shield if no one bothers to raise it? Before we get into the heartbreaking details, if you're new to the channel, welcome to True Crime Unraveled. We dissect the facts to understand the why behind the crime. If you find value in these deep dives, hitting that like button and subscribing helps us bring more stories like this to light. And to our incredible community on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, True Crime Unraveled TV, we see you. We read every single comment, and we appreciate you keeping the conversation going. Now, let's get into the story of Latricia Green. To understand the end, you have to understand who Latricia Green was. To her family, she was Letitia Brown. To her co-workers at Henry Ford Hospital, she was the heart of the housekeeping department.
I broke down in tears because me and her used to talk, because I was telling her I was having problems with my child father, and didn't know she was having problems of her own. She really a good person. She don't mess with nobody or nothing.
For 2 decades, she was the dependable one, the listener. Friends say you could come to her with anything. She was 40 years old, loved God, loved her family, and showed up. But by the spring of 2025, her personal life was coming apart at the seams. She'd been married to Mario Dwayne Green since 2012, the same year he was released from prison on an arson conviction. They divorced in 2018, but in a complicated twist, they kept living together. That arrangement finally blew up in March 2025. Mario kicked Latricia out. With nowhere to go, this dedicated hospital employee resorted to sleeping in her car in the very hospital parking lot where she worked. She eventually got a small apartment, rented in a friend's name for safety. She was trying to start over. But Mario Green wasn't having it. His behavior escalated from troubling to terrifying. He began a campaign of harassment focused on her workplace. He called the hospital dozens of times, some reports say 50 times, asking for her, threatening her coworkers. He showed up. On April 18th, hospital security had to stop him from getting to her office.
Take a look. This officer-worn body camera footage shows Green at her job in April.
So what's going on with you? I'm talking to you though. She don't talk because I didn't call you. She called you. Can I get additional officers? That's my wife.
On July 1st, he broke into her car, stealing her things and cutting up her clothes. A message, clear as day. I can reach you whenever I want. Latricia was not silent. She fought back with the tools society gives victims. On June 13, 2025, she filed for a personal protection order, a PPO, in Wayne County Circuit Court. She detailed the calls, the threats, the showing up at her job. The judge denied it, saying it lacked sufficient detail. It was a bureaucratic rejection of a woman's fear. So, Latricia, knowing the wolf was at the door, tried again. On July 20th, she filed a second, more detailed petition. Her words are a chilling forecast. She wrote, I have to constantly look over my shoulder to make sure this man is not following me to hurt me like he has done in the past with physical abuse. I am asking for help before this goes too far, and things are too late. This time, Judge Carla Tostani heard her. The PPO was granted on July 21st. Latricia must have felt a moment of relief. A legal barrier was now in place. But here's where the first critical door was left wide open. In Michigan, the burden of serving that PPO, of physically putting that legal document into the abuser's hands, often falls on the victim. You can pay the sheriff $26 to do it, or you can find someone brave enough to track down the person you're terrified of and hand them the papers. For reasons we may never fully know, Latricia Green's PPO was never served to Mario Green. As far as the law was concerned, it didn't exist for him. The shield was approved, stamped, and filed away. For 32 days, it was just a piece of paper in a drawer, while the man it was meant to restrain knew full well his ex-wife was trying to hide from him. Now, let's talk about Mario Green. He was 53, 13 years older than Latricia. And his past was a blinking red warning light that everyone seemed to overlook. This wasn't his first rodeo. Back in 2001, a young woman named Katina McLean learned what Mario Green was capable of. They dated briefly when she was 20. When she tried to end it, he stalked her. He followed her, left notes on her car. It reached a horrifying climax when he followed her to a male friend's house. Enraged, he chased her down, forced her from her car, and put a gun to her head.
My heart just felt like it dropped into my feet because I hadn't seen him since 2000. Followed me to a friend's house one day, and because it was a man, I guess that upset him, and that's what led to him chasing me down and making me get out of my car and putting a gun to my head because, as he said, if I wasn't gonna be with him, I wouldn't be with him. This never should have happened to me, her, or anybody else. If a person wants to leave, they have that right to leave.
His words to her were a classic abuser's motto. If I wasn't going to be with him, I wouldn't be with anybody. Katina did what Latricia would try to do 24 years later. She went to the police that same day. She got a restraining order. And crucially, she got it served. Mario Green pleaded guilty to aggravated stalking. And after that, he never contacted Katina McLean again. Not once in 24 years. The system, when fully activated, worked. But after his probation for that crime, Mario's record kept growing. A 2006 conviction for arson landed him a 6-year prison sentence. He'd also recently finished probation for failing to pay child support. This was the man Latricia Green was dealing with. A man with a proven pattern of obsession, violence, and a willingness to use a gun to get what he wanted. When Katina saw Mario's face on the news after the hospital shooting, her heart, as she said, dropped into her feet. She knew what he was. And she knew that a piece of paper, if it never reaches its target, is worse than useless. It's a false promise. Meanwhile, Henry Ford Hospital security knew Mario Green. They had his picture. He was banned from the property. They had dealt with him in person on April 18th. Body cam footage from that day, later shown in court, shows a man identified as Mario being escorted out, yelling at security, "I choose to come see her if I choose to come see her, and that's my wife." The threat was known. It was documented. Yet, the hospital's main security, with metal detectors, was at the emergency room entrance. The basement, where Latricia worked in an office. Anyone could walk in. So you have a perfect tragic storm. A victim doing everything by the book. A court that finally granted protection but left the enforcement to her. A police department aware of the threats. A workplace that knew the danger. And a predator with a history, moving freely, his path cleared by procedural gaps. The morning of Thursday, August 22nd, was, by all accounts, a normal morning at Henry Ford Hospital. Patients were being treated, babies were being born, staff were on their shifts. Latricia Green was in the basement, in her office in the housekeeping department. At approximately 9:55 a.m., Mario Green walked into the hospital. He wasn't sneaking in through a back alley. He walked in likely through a main door. He knew exactly where he was going. He went straight to the basement. He found Latricia. A coworker would later testify about the moments just before. She heard Mario asking Latricia for help with the bill, asking her to come out into the hall. Latricia was working. Then, a gunshot.
Do you recall the nature of the conversation between Mario and Trish?
He was just asking her questions like, oh, I need help with a bill. Can you come out to the hall? And she was working and answering his questions.
What happens next after you hear their conversation?
I heard a gunshot.
Inside the hospital, chaos erupted. Code announcements blared over the loudspeakers. Then, the words everyone trains for but never wants to hear. Active shooter. The hospital slammed into lockdown. Doors were secured, people barricaded themselves in rooms, patients and staff hid under desks and in closets. Tashina Stevens, an employee, described as sheer terror. It was the most horrible feeling because when you're in a room and they tell you can't leave and there's somebody shooting, you just don't know. And your life just starts flashing in front of your eyes. One man, whose girlfriend had just given birth, was trapped outside the maternity ward. His phone died. He watched from a window as police officers, guns drawn, swept the corridors. They were walking with their guns, like their hands on it, looking for this person.
Once I found out what happened, I was like, oh my God, because I was that nervous. My girlfriend in the bed, I got the door closed. It's not a lock on the door, so I'm looking out the little windows, and said, I'm like, man, I just got, had a few chills go up and down my body, up and down my body, I'm like, wow, I don't have nothing to protect us with.
And we didn't know if he was still hiding, so we didn't know anything. Police responded in force. They found Latricia Green in her office. She had been shot at close range. She was dead. And Mario Green was gone. He had fled the scene, calmly exiting the hospital and getting into his white 2011 Dodge Charger with license plate DXC7067. He just drove away, leaving behind a building full of traumatized people and a life he had extinguished. The manhunt was immediate and massive. Detroit Police, Michigan State Police, the ATF, the FBI, Wayne County Sheriff, all mobilized. Helicopters circled. Search dogs were deployed. Chief Todd Bettison called Green a monster and vowed to get him off the streets. Around 1 p.m., they found his car. It was abandoned, just sitting near a speed limit sign at Trojan and Losser Roads on Detroit's west side. It felt like a taunt. A neighbor's security camera caught a tall figure, matching Green's description, running from the vehicle. He had vanished into the city. But Mario Green didn't disappear. His first call, prosecutors would later allege, was to a friend, 54-year-old Anthony Lelamont Barnett. According to the charges, Green told Barnett what he had done. And Barnett, they say, gave him advice that speaks to a conscious effort to evade justice. Ditch your cell phone so the police can't track it. Barnett then allegedly went to a Walmart in Roseville and bought a burner phone. When police came knocking, asking if he knew where Mario was, Barnett lied. The search continued through the night. Then, at 2:55 a.m. on Saturday, August 23rd, less than 18 hours after the shooting, police closed in on a house on LeMay Street on Detroit's east side. It was Anthony Barnett's home. Inside, they found Mario Green. He surrendered without a fight. They arrested Barnett too, charging him as an accessory after the fact and for lying to police. The manhunt was over.
Less than 24 hours after Latricia Green is shot and killed, neighbors say police spend hours looking for Mario Green, a man who police say is accused of the deadly shooting Friday at Henry Ford Hospital.
That was senseless, man. It's too much. It's too much killing going on. It's too much.
DPD tells Local 4 multiple law enforcement agencies helped them take Green into custody without incident. What residents are telling me, it appears the alleged shooter stashed a car in this empty parking lot.
I'm glad they caught the guy. Get him off the streets.
Another neighbor says officers surrounded a vacant home, asking for Green to come out.
All I know, it was about 3-4 cops sitting right here. You can hear the radio going off telling them to come outside.
But perhaps the most chilling part of this quiet neighborhood being rocked by this high-profile case. Hours after police cleared the scene, neighbors say something still felt out of place.
So, real quick, what is it that you just found moments ago?
Okay, so we just found the Henry Ford visitor pass to the date of yesterday. Floor 1, room 135.
What's going through your mind?
I don't even know. I don't know if he brought this here with him. He just wanted to leave a clue or something.
For Latricia's family, it was a small step. Her cousin, Deonjuan Jones, had said in the desperate hours of the manhunt, she was such a sweet person. She didn't deserve what happened to her at all. The arrest wouldn't bring her back, but it was the start of a long road toward accountability. Mario Green was hit with 8 felony charges: first-degree premeditated murder, discharging a firearm in a building causing death, aggravated stalking, firearm possession by a prohibited person, and multiple counts of felony firearm. Given his prior record, he was charged as a habitual offender, facing life without parole. At his arraignment, the prosecutor didn't mince words, describing the act as a horrific charge where Green entered a hospital full of workers, civilians, and people being treated for medical issues to seek out and kill his ex-wife. The judge remanded him no bond. He wasn't going anywhere. The preliminary hearing in December 2025 laid out the case. Prosecutors showed surveillance footage, a man matching Green's description walking toward Latricia's office and later running from the area, holding in his hand what a police officer testified was a gun. They played the body cam footage from the April confrontation. They had the coworker who heard the conversation and the gunshot. Green's attorney, Brian Barry, argued there was no direct witness who saw the trigger being pulled, that the video didn't definitively show a gun, and that there was no evidence Green hadn't been invited to the hospital that day. But Judge Sean Jock saw enough. While this case may not involve a direct witness seeing exactly when the shot was fired, he said, there is enough circumstantial evidence present for this bind over. Mario Green was ordered to stand trial for murder. Anthony Barnett also had his day in court. His attorney argued he was a family man with a job, not a flight risk. The prosecutor painted him as a crucial enabler who helped a murderer hide. The judge kept his bond at $100,000, citing the serious nature of helping someone avoid apprehension for homicide. But the real trial, the one happening in the court of public opinion, was about the system. Advocates and Latricia's family asked the hard questions. Why, in Michigan, is the burden of serving a PPO placed on the victim, the very person it's meant to protect? How could a man banned from a hospital, known to security, simply walk in? How many reports does it take before stalking tips over from a nuisance to an imminent threat? Latricia's killing became a catalyst. It prompted the Michigan Senate to pass bipartisan legislation aimed at fixing the PPO system, potentially requiring law enforcement to serve orders and prohibiting fees for victims. It was a legacy born from tragedy, a direct response to the phrase in her PPO petition, "I feel that the system has now let me down." So, where does this leave us? With the story of Latricia Green, a woman who is remembered as sweet, generous, magnificent, a mother figure to her friends. And with the story of Mario Green, a man whose pattern of violence stretched back decades, who saw a woman not as a person, but as possession. This case is a masterclass in systemic failure. It shows how different safeguards, the courts, the police, workplace security, can all function in their own lanes and still, collectively, fail to protect someone. Latricia checked every box society gave her. The final, fatal box: Getting that PPO into her abuser's hands was the one she couldn't check alone. And no one stepped in to help her do it. It asks us an uncomfortable question. How many Latricia Greens are out there right now, holding a piece of paper that feels less like a shield and more like a placeholder, waiting for the system to catch up to the danger they're living in? We want to hear from you. This is a complex, layered tragedy. What do you think is the single biggest point of failure in this case? Was it the PPO service rule, the hospital security, or something else? Do you think laws in your state adequately protect stalking victims? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one and appreciate the thoughtful discussions you all bring. If this deep dive into a case that exposes the cracks in the system resonated with you, please show your support by giving this video a thumbs up. It really helps our channel grow. And to make sure you don't miss our next investigation into the stories that need to be unraveled, subscribe to True Crime Unraveled on YouTube and follow True Crime Unraveled TV on Facebook and TikTok. Hit that bell for notifications. We leave you with the words of Katina McLean, Mario Green's victim from 24 years prior, who survived because her restraining order was served. She spoke up for Latricia, saying, "I'll fight for you." Sometimes, the only way to honor a victim is to make sure their story changes something. Thank you for watching.
Hi, what's your name, sir?
Mario Green.
Thank you. This will be case 25059-589, State of Michigan versus Mario Dwayne Green, counsel.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. APA Larry King for the people, P78774.
Judge Philip Raid on behalf of Mario Green. We would waive the formal reading, stand mute. He has been advised of his constitutional rights.
Court will enter not guilty plea on your client's behalf as to bond.
Your Honor, the people request bond in this matter be set at remand. Michigan Court Rule 6.106 permits remand in cases where the defendant is charged with murder. In this case, it's alleged that the defendant entered a hospital full of workers, civilians, and people being treated for medical issues, and in that hospital sought out his ex-wife at her office and fired a shot, killing her. Your Honor, this is a horrific charge. It's first-degree premeditated murder. He is facing potential life in prison. Based on the nature of the charges, the potential threat to the safety, and the fact that he ran, he hid, he had to be searched out by police over the course of several days with the assistance of several law enforcement agencies. I think he's an unreasonable risk of safety to the community and poses a flight risk. The people are requesting remand. Your Honor, if the court is not inclined to remand the defendant, we would request $1 million cash bond with GPS tether house arrest.
Thank you.
Judge, I did speak with Mr. Green in depth. We are asking the court for some type of nominal bond and anything other than a remand, Your Honor.
All right. Well, the allegations here are as serious as they get in this state. First-degree premeditated murder, and particularly the details of the allegations are just horrendous. Court does find Mr. Green poses a danger to the community as well as the seriousness of the offense. Court will remand Mr. Green to the custody of Wayne County Sheriff's pending further hearings in this matter. Next court dates are September 4, probable cause conference, and September 11, preliminary exam. Both of those are in front of Judge Jacquet here in 36th District Court. Anything else for this record?
No, Your Honor, nothing further from the people. Thank you.
Nothing further.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. You can step aside.
The Detroit man accused of killing his ex-wife at Henry Ford Hospital will now stand trial for the crime of first-degree murder. Welcome to CBS News Detroit at 5. I'm Terrence Friday.
And I'm Rochelle Graham in for Shayna Humphreys. CBS News Detroit's Elaine Rojas Castillo takes a look at the disturbing video played in court and what's next.
On Thursday, prosecutors set their case against Mario Green, the man accused of killing his ex-wife Latricia at Henry Ford Hospital in August.
He brought a gun.
He brought a gun into a building where his ex-wife worked, knowing she did not want to have contact with him.
Prosecutors say the Detroit man shot the victim while she was at work in the hospital's basement.
She saw no one else at the time. She heard no other voices at the time. The only two people who were there were the defendant and Miss Green.
In surveillance video from the day of the shooting, the court could see a man fitting Green's description running from the victim's office, holding what police say was a weapon. Defense attorney Brian Barry argued that there was no concrete evidence that Green hadn't been invited to the hospital on August 22nd, that the building's surveillance footage couldn't prove he had a gun in his hand, or if he was the one who pulled the trigger.
Nobody even asked him where he was, what he was doing, if he has a gun of that nature, caliber, or anything of that nature. One shot is fired, just a single shot.
During the preliminary hearing, officers and witnesses testified to the victim asking for orders of protection against the 53-year-old. Police body camera footage from earlier in the year was later shown, where a man believed to be Green could be seen arguing with the victim before being escorted out of the hospital. In his ruling, 36th District Court Judge Sean K. Jack said there was enough probable cause to push the case forward.
While this case may not involve a direct witness seeing exactly when the shot was fired, there is enough circumstantial evidence present for this bind over.
If convicted, Green faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. His arraignment in circuit court is set for December 26th. Elaine Rojas Castillo, CBS News Detroit.
We begin tonight with a woman opening up about her experience with the man accused of shooting and killing his ex-wife at the hospital where she worked.
Welcome to 7 News Detroit at 6. I'm Carolyn Clifford.
And I'm Mike Duffy. Thank you for joining us.
Mario Green is accused of killing his ex-wife, Latricia Green, at Henry Ford Hospital where she worked.
While the suspect went into hiding, we're now learning that his ex-girlfriend feared for her safety, thinking she could be his next target.
Well, tonight she is talking to 7 News Detroit reporter Rudolph Sinaida about her violent encounters with the suspect and raising awareness about domestic violence in her honor.
That ex-girlfriend is Katina McLenny. She says her and Mario Green dated back in 2001 when she was just 20 years old. She says she wasn't brave enough to speak up back then, but she is now, and she's doing it for Latricia Green.
What would you want to tell her if she was sitting here today?
I'll fight for you.
Katina McKinley has found her voice and is using it to stand up for someone who lost theirs, Latricia Green. Mario Green is accused of shooting and killing his ex-wife at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit last Friday. That's a name and face Katina hadn't heard in decades until she saw his photo on the news.
My heart just felt like it dropped into my feet because I hadn't seen him since 2001.
Katina says her and Mario met through work when she was young, and they had a brief relationship. She eventually wanted out, and that's when he allegedly began following her, stalking her, even leaving notes on her car. Then it all came to a dramatic peak.
He followed me to a friend's house one day, and because it was a man, I guess that upset him, and that's what led to him chasing me down and making me get out of my car and putting a gun to my head because, as he said, if I wasn't going to be with him, I wouldn't be with anybody.
Katina says she filed a police report that day and got a restraining order against Mario. He then never contacted her again. But Latricia wasn't so lucky. She was granted a personal protection order back in July, but it was never served.
This never should have happened to me, her, or anybody else. If a person wants to leave, they have that right to leave.
Jenny Hooper is the interim executive director over at First Step, a domestic violence and sexual assault agency in Wayne County. She says she's not surprised Mario is allegedly a repeat offender.
That is a pattern behavior. That is what we know about abuse.
Green was arraigned on Monday, along with an accomplice that was allegedly helping him hide out during that manhunt. Green pleaded not guilty, but Katina says she knows the truth of what happened to her and will do everything in her power to get justice for Latricia.
What do we do? Because this is happening too often.
In Detroit, I'm Rudolph Sinaida, 7 News Detroit.
Certainly helps when people speak up so others learn lessons from it.
Yeah, thankfully she is. Thank you, Ruth.